In the last video, we added a couple of pipes, the uppercase pipe to transform the instance type and the date pipe to transform the type. But as mentioned at the end of the last video, it would be nice if we could configure a pipe, because this layout here, this way of displaying the date, might not be the layout, the format of the date you want to output. So it would be nice if we could parameterize a pipe, and we can. For example, on the date here, we can add a parameter to configure the pipe by adding a colon, and this is the case for any pipe. You configure it, you pass a parameter to it by adding a colon. Of course, the pipe needs to be able to handle a parameter, and again, I will come back to where to find out how these pipes work or what the built-in pipes do, how they can be configured in a second. The date pipe can take a parameter, and we simply add it after this colon. Now, the date pipe expects to receive a string parameter, so let's pass a string. And there you basically set up the date. I'll come back to the options you have in a second. Now, for the moment, let's just enter full date, camel case, so a capital D. Let's save this and go back to our application. And you see, now we get a better formatted date. Now, might still not be what you want, but again, I will come back to other options in a second. It is what I like to see here. And this is how easy you can parameterize a pipe. You can pass parameters by simply adding a colon and then the parameter. As a side note, if you would have multiple parameters here, you simply separate them with additional colons. So the date pipe doesn't take an additional parameter, but if it would, you could pass it by adding another colon and then the second parameter. Now, with these basic functionalities set, let's have a look at where you can learn more about the built-in pipes and how you can configure them. Let's dive into this in the next lecture. In the last lecture, we parameterized our first pipe here, the date pipe. Now let's learn more about all the built-in pipes and how we can configure them. The place to learn more is the official documentation. So you can just head to angular.io and there under docs, click on API reference. Now, you may ignore the version number up here. It should be 4 point something at the point of time you view the video. I'm just recording this in advance, but the pipes won't change or haven't changed. So here you can enter pipe as a filter, and then you view all the pipes which are built into Angular. And there you see we got a couple of them. We already used the date pipe and the uppercase pipe. But there also is the slice pipe, which allows you to take a slice of the input. And there you would see that the slice pipe actually takes multiple arguments, the start and the end. So where it should start slicing out a piece of the word and where it should end. There you can also view a detailed explanation and an example. So this is really a great place to dive into pipes and play around with them, since there is not much sense in covering them all in detail here video by video, as they are very specific in the use case, and the documentation here is really great for diving deeper into it. So with that out of the way, I want to have a look at the date pipe. Here you can see how you can configure it. You can see a couple of different shortcuts for getting a specific date format, or you can format it from scratch with the typical symbols like lowercase d for a day and so on. So this is where you can dive into how to make the date look exactly how you want it to look. Now with that, let's move on to creating our own pipe, or almost move to that point, one other thing, and then we will move on. Now with our pipes being added and parameterized, it's also important to know that you can combine pipes in Angular. So far, we only used pipes on their own. So we added the date pipe to our server started output here, and we added the uppercase pipe to the instance type. Now, what if we wanted to, yes, format the date like this, but then for some reason also make it all uppercase? Now, you can simply chain pipes by adding a pipe symbol after a pipe. So we could add uppercase here. Now, the order might be important. Generally, it will be parsed from left to right. So server started gets into this pipe here. So the date pipe gets applied to our server started property output here, to the string interpolation. The uppercase pipe then gets applied to the result of this operation. And I can show this if I save it like this. You see that the date indeed is uppercase. Now if I switch positions here and put the uppercase pipe first and then parse the date, you see we get an error. And if we open up the console and view this error, you see that this argument here is not correct for the uppercase pipe. It doesn't know how to parse it because it is a date and not a string, and there are elements which can't be turned into uppercase. So this is why it's important to watch the order. You should apply the pipes in the order you want to transform your input. So transforming the date into something which can be parsed first is absolutely fine, and as you will see, will work correctly. You see it here. But the other way around wouldn't work in this example. So again, always keep this order in mind from left to right. This is how it gets executed and how pipes get applied. With that out of the way, let's create our own pipe in case there is some functionality we need which is not available in one of the built-in pipes. Thus far, we already learned a lot about the built-in pipes or on pipes in general. You learned how to use them, where to find out more about them, how to pass parameters or possibly multiple parameters, and also how to chain pipes. This is great, but sometimes you need some functionality which just isn't built in. In this case, you need to create your own pipe, and thankfully, this is super simple. Now, creating our own pipe is as simple as creating a new file in your app folder and then giving it a descriptive name. For example here, I want to create a pipe which shortens my words, the input. Because let's say I want to shorten this name of my server, so the testing environment server somehow gets cut off. Now for this, I will create a shorten pipe, so I will name the file shorten.pipe.ts to keep this naming convention of being descriptive about what's in a file. Now this newly created TypeScript file should simply hold a class, which I export of course, which I'll name shortenPipe. Now this shortenPipe, this class, needs to have one special method to be usable as a pipe. And whilst not strictly necessary, it's a good practice to implement a certain interface which requires you to implement that method. The interface is called pipe transform, and you need to import it from @angular/core. So make sure to add this import at the top, pipe transform from @angular core. And with that implemented, you see that I now get an error in my IDE. You would also get an error if you now try to compile this. Because what we need to do here is we need to apply, or we need to provide, the transform method. Now adding the transform method like this still is not 100% correct. Transform needs to receive the value which should get transformed. So we need to get the value here, which is of type any, and then we would receive a list of arguments. Now, for now, our pipe here doesn't take any arguments, so I will omit any other arguments here in the transform method, so we only receive the value. Now, to shorten this value, a quick and easy way to do this would be to return, and this is important. Transform always needs to return something because a pipe is just you put something in, you get something out, so you need to get something out, otherwise it won't work. So here we want to return a new string, and this new string should be the old value, but somehow is shortened. And we could simply use the substring method, substr. This is a built-in method JavaScript offers, where you can define how long this string, the substring you want to extract should be. So you want to start at index 0, at the start of the value, and then let's say we want to have it 10 characters long. This would only give us back the first 10 characters. Again, we can see this if we save it like this, returning this substring of values so that we only get the first 10 characters. Now to use this pipe, we need to go to app module and add it to declarations here. the shorten pipe. So just like components and directives, you also need to add pipes to declarations. Make sure to also add the import pointing to the shorten.pipe.ts file, of course, as always, without the .ts at the end here. Now with this added, we make this pipe available, and then we can go to our app component and use it, I'd say, but how would we use it? Well, we have to go back to the shorten pipe first. This class is implementing the interface we need to implement, but it lacks one important thing. We need to add a special decorator, the pipe decorator, which is also imported from @Angular core. In the pipe decorator, you can specify the name for the pipe by simply adding name and then, for example, shorten. Now, by setting it up like this, you can now go to your template and on the server instance type, which is, on the server name here, we simply add a pipe symbol and now shorten our own pipe. Now, if we do this and save, you see it gets cut off, and if we count the characters, this looks like 10 characters. So now our shorten pipe is in use. It's not super pretty though. So we can improve our pipe, and this is now something which is not really related to pipes. I'm simply adding a new string to my shorten string, and this will simply be 3 dots and maybe a blank space in front of it. So now the shortening should look a bit prettier because now we cut it off, though we always see the 3 strings. So another improvement might be to first check if the if the string is really longer than 10 characters. So here I first check if value length is greater than 10 characters, because only if it is greater, only in this case I want to shorten it, otherwise I will return the unchanged value. So now in this case, you see if this reloads, it shortens all these names. But if we were to remove the server here and the blank space on the first server so that it's just called production, therefore it just has 10 characters, you see now we don't have the 3 dots here because we improved our pipe. But this is all pure JavaScript tuning, not really related to pipes. The important part about pipes is that you A, add this pipe decorator, B, make sure you have the transform method, possibly enforced by adding the pipe transform interface, which is a good idea, which is a good practice, and C, by adding your pipe to the declarations array in your app module. And with that, you're good to use your own pipe and to create your own pipes and adjust them to your needs. Now let's improve this pipe in the next lecture.